Okay, welcome to the Excellence in Teaching Conference. My name is Dr. Joseph Schuessler. My co-author is Dr. Dennis Jones. Unfortunately, I can't be there today. I'm at a conference, but my co-author, Dr. Jones, thought it would be a kind of a neat idea since we're talking about incorporating video conferencing into online classes. Thought it would be a neat idea to incorporate some sort of video into the presentation. So here we go. Let's go ahead and jump on into this just a little bit. So uses of video. When we talk about video, we're really talking about a couple of different kinds of video, synchronous versus asynchronous video. And synchronous, think of S for synchronous as being the same. So we're talking about the same time where we're interacting, we're able to talk to one another, ask questions, respond to those questions, etc. Asynchronous is recorded video. So we might access a YouTube video, and that's asynchronous. It was recorded in the past. We can't really ask questions of the person making the video, but so that's kind of asynchronous, and they are kind of related. We can record our synchronous sessions and make them available later. But the focus of this particular presentation is on synchronous. So what are some of the uses of synchronous video in online classes? Well, one of the ones I really like is online course exploration. I used to do videos. I'd go in, I'd share videos with students, I'd create videos with students, I'd have a session, and I'd record it. And let students ask questions about where things were in the course. So, here's my home page, here's the various assignments, where those are located, here's the syllabus, all of those kind of things. And it would really help answer questions that students might have in an online course. Everybody sets up their courses a little bit differently from one another. So I always thought it was very helpful for students to be able to have that information. And by doing it synchronously, it allows you to answer questions and respond to student questions. And then, of course, by recording it, that allows you to share that video for students that might not have been able to make that particular session. Something very similar for the syllabus and the course schedule. It's something you normally do in a face-to-face class anyway. It's something you do at usually the very first class day. You share that information with the student. You go through the syllabus. You want to talk about the course objectives, assignments, and when they're due, semester projects, all of those kind of course expectations that you want to set for a student that very first day. This allows you that opportunity to do it in an online environment. Something else is the instructor introduction. I know that when I was a student, I always liked to hear a little bit about my professor. Where did they go to school? What were their degrees in? Where do they do research? Those kinds of things. What are their professional interests? What are the things that they're doing? Because it gave me a better idea where they were coming from. And so I try to share that information through a synchronous session, again, allowing students to ask questions about my background and hopefully instill in them a little bit of confidence that I do know a little bit of what I'm doing, and also that I'm there to learn myself. So now this one deviates a little bit, this next bullet point deviates a little bit from synchronous sessions, but it does facilitate some of those synchronous conversations. I do like to incorporate humorous videos. So I find clips from a variety of different things that are related to information systems, because that's my academic discipline, or in some cases they're related to more of the mechanics of the class. So in this particular case, the Impotence of Proofreading by Taylor Molly. It's a funny video, but it really kind of stresses the importance of when you're going to work on a semester project or a written assignment, take some time to actually review what you wrote. It's important to do that. And I frequently will have comments. People will ask me about some of the videos. We'll talk about some of the videos and the humor side of it. And I'll ask them to, if you've identified any videos yourself, share them with me, and I'll share them with future classes if they're appropriate. So it helps to open up some of that dialogue and some of that rapport. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in a little bit. Also, one of the things I really do like about synchronous sessions is it allows for presentations like you might have in a face-to-face class. If I have students that, it's a group presentation or it's an individual presentation, I can do that in an online class with synchronous sessions, and other students can chime in, they can ask questions, I can ask questions, they can respond to those answers in real time. It's kind of a pet peeve of mine when I hear people talk about how it's an online class, they can't do presentations. Yes, you can. You absolutely can. It just takes a little bit of work, not too much. It's really pretty easy and straightforward with some of the tools that are out there. And we'll talk about those in a little bit too. Now, having said all of this, it's not magic. It's, a lot of this is rooted in research, and there's a lot of research on there, and you can spend, that could be your whole research agenda if you wanted to focus on this stuff. But one of the things that we're really trying to do in an online environment is increase interaction between learners, between learners, the instructor, and the content. And if we can maximize that, that's what we're trying to do in face-to-face classes as well. If we can maximize that, the idea is that students will learn better, they'll be more satisfied, things like that. Now, that's one of the interesting things, because it actually leads to these next 2 bullet points. These next 2 bullet points basically say, the use of video in online classes does not increase student learning. What it does do is it increases their satisfaction. They are more satisfied with online courses that incorporate video. So that's important. And another thing I think is interesting about this is that's consistent with some research that Dr. Jason Sharp, one of our professors in CIS, conducted. He basically had the same conclusions, that the use of video in his online classes led to increased student satisfaction, that basically the course evaluation scores were higher because of it. So, it does have its place. Hopefully at some point we get better with video and it actually increases student learning as well. But, the use of video is important in online classes. If for nothing else, they like the classes better. Some more research for Rhonda and Lippincott state that video conferencing sessions lead to a whole host of benefits. So fluid communication, exchange of ideas, question and answer sessions, debates, documents sharing, stuff like that. I know that I've done some of these things where I've been able to pull up a document, or a student's been able to pull up a document, share that document with me. I can look at it, and in real time, we can sit there and point things out to one another. They can tell me, this is what I meant with this piece of text, or I can tell them why they left something out in a particular section. So things like that. So it leads to some of those discussions that are hard to do in an online environment otherwise. Another point by Clark, Strudler, and Grove, that video enhanced discussions create greater social and teaching presence relative to text-based discussions. To be honest with you, this is not one that I've used a lot up until now, because I'm looking at this. My text-based discussions that I use are really pretty extensive, and I really do hit them hard and give them very detailed instructions, and I get some pretty good reactions out of those discussions. But the reality is after reading this, I really need to think about ways to incorporate video into those discussions, because they do have an impact. Now, speaking of presence, we're really trying to focus on 3 different kinds of presence: social presence, teaching presence, and cognitive presence. So that social presence, again, I share those humorous videos with students, and I'm starting to build that rapport. I'm able to start to talk to students about course-related concepts and relating other things that really kind of helps them as a broader student. So they can ask questions about, well, what about the next class? What about, when I graduate? What about job recommendations and internships and involvement in student organizations? So it creates that social presence that makes it okay for them to ask a deeper, more probing questions. Also creates a teaching presence, in that by having these discussions with students about the content, I can start to critique their work. I can show them how to do something. So, for example, I teach networking. If they're creating a network diagram using Microsoft Visio, I can show them how to create that diagram, how to embed it in their Word document, things like that, because I can point and click. I can show them on the screen exactly what to do. And then the cognitive presence. So as presentations are done, they're thinking, other classmates are thinking about the concepts that they've just been presented with. They can ask questions. We can try to drill a little bit deeper and answer some of those questions or comments. Now, some of the tools that are out there, there's lots of tools. Obviously there's Conferences tool that's built directly within Canvas. It really works pretty well. It can automatically caption the videos when you submit them. So it's a nice little tool to be able to have live and then be able to save those recordings. Google Hangouts is always a neat one. It's easy. It really works great in terms of students being able to make calls. I used to use this for virtual office hours. It worked great for that. I actually had students call me one time while I was driving down the road, had to pull over and answer their questions. And I actually got positive feedback in my teaching evaluations because of that. And I knew who it was because that's the only time that's ever happened to me. It was really neat. I actually sat in on a webinar here a few weeks ago using Google Meets, and one of the things I thought was really cool about that was it had a closed captioning button for a live presentation. So it actually captured and produced voice captioning for a live meet. And then other tools that are probably a little bit more familiar to most people, Skype and Zoom as well. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Dr. Dennis Jones and let him finish up the presentation. Thank you very much. Enjoy.